coming to the broad, question of this panel, does investing in women entrepreneurs fuel higher financial and social returns? I've been talking to all of them over the last 1 hour, and we think it's unfair to just analyze this from the lens of, return on investment. Will it lead to 10% higher returns if I invest in a, startup led by a woman vis-a-vis a man? But we should also be talking about what other values women entrepreneurs bring to the table. So we are going to broad base the scope of this discussion. I'm going to ask Varsha to really, give us some opening remarks on your own experience, because it's true that less than 7% of VC money goes to women entrepreneurs, but it's also true that there are hardly, less than 10% of VCs who are women. So does that have an effect on the funding that women manage to raise, or does it help to have people like Varsha at Qualcomm for the cause of women entrepreneurs?
I know. And I would assume you will have a viewpoint on it as well. I think India has a broad set of cultures. So I think women here, if I said you had to approach a male VC, my colleague, equally competent, how many of you are comfortable? Versus approaching me, equally competent, just coming from a different side. And I think you'll get a, if I do a show of hand of all the women here, ease of approaching him. Please raise your hands. Okay. Ease of approaching me. See, this is, okay, it's a little bit skewed.
It's not such a big difference, actually.
It's not, right? It's not.
It depends on the questions Atin will ask, though.
So I think, from my point of view, I think we look at where India was. I've been investing in India for the last 10 years. And what I felt compared to 2007 to 2017, we have seen increase in the number of startups. And fueled underneath that, the micro trend would be number of women entrepreneurs. So those are the two trends that I have seen. In our portfolio, we are very proud to have two women-led companies. One is called Portea, run by Meena. And second one is run by Shraddha, Your Story. We have also seen increase in general management, where we've seen women rise from middle management to upper management. I think that also has been a trend which has been equally positive. Within my peer group, we have seen more.
Any particular reasons, Varsha, that's led to this surge that you are seeing, that why it's more positive today compared to, say, 4 or 5 years back? Right. I mean, any particular factors or trigger that's really helped?
Yeah. I think the macro trend has helped overall gender, whether it is male or female. The spirit of entrepreneurship in India has gone up. I think people feel good to take those risks. So we are seeing more people coming into that ecosystem. That's been fueled by amount of capital that's been available. And so those two trends have helped us overall in terms of a number of people, independent of gender. Now, underneath that, I think you've seen it helping the women entrepreneurs as well, because they are coming from either some of the larger companies or taking risk just out of college, right? So I go to IIT to judge ECEL here in Mumbai, and we do see many plans coming from around the country, actually. So the colleges are helping with incubation, they are helping with business plan competition, and this happens even in the IIMs. So that trend has tremendously increased over the last 6 years. And I say those are feeders to us. Those are feeders to startups, and then you are seeing after that a whole bunch of incubators. One run by him,
right.
You provide that, she provides that, right? So we've seen number of incubators also go up substantially over the last 6 years. So you got the IIMs or the business schools and the engineering schools holding competitions. Then you got the incubators who have gone up substantially in number. Most of the MNCs now have accelerators in India. So that has helped. And then followed that up with capital. I think that's been the real reason why you've seen significant increase.
It's not an ideal balance, but we are getting there. It's much better than where we were.
Yeah, I would just compare us to ourselves.
You
where
shouldn't
we
compare
were.
us to what's happening in the valley.
No, I
And
compared to,
not
when...
very good things are happening in the valley.
Not when, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I mean, you look at when I went for engineering school, as I was mentioning to you, we were 5 women in a class of 70. And now I think the balance would be very, very different. Now you know how old I am, but that's the reality. Now the number is much more balanced than it was a few years ago.
Right. Then coming to the broader scope, on financial returns, I'm going to take social returns with Deepthi. But in terms of financial returns, would that be the ideal metric to really evaluate a startup led by a women entrepreneur vis-a-vis a male entrepreneur? And at least globally, studies show that perhaps the return on investment is better here. But should that be the only metric by which you gauge a startup run by a woman entrepreneur? Or what other factors should we look for?
No, I think that's a great question. But first, I want to thank Empower for giving me a doctorate today, because I'm not a doctor. But it's a great day for me.
And you got a PhD free.
But just to add to your last question for Varsha, I think one of the trends that's very important to note why we see a lot more women entrepreneurs now coming in, and that trend changing for the positive, is because startups were synonymous to tech at one point in time. And I think the definition of that should be startups should be synonymous to business. And as we move towards just tech entrepreneurs, just technology, just that being the norm, to actually saying what is domain knowledge required for? What are the businesses we are trying to create? How long-term those businesses? I think once we start doing that, automatically we move away from a much more positive area for women entrepreneurs to mushroom. And I think that's what's really helped as a trend over the last 10 years as well, if I can add to that. To your question about financial returns versus other parameters, we as Roundglass look at things very, very differently. We are a business for well-being. We look at impact. We don't look at only financial returns, and I hope that's the lens that a lot of other investors look at in the future. Simply because for us...
What do you mean when you say impact?
So we look at fundamentally building businesses. We believe that entrepreneurs who are in the mindset of just looking at an exit before they even start a business is not the right way to build a business or think about a business. That whole premise is fundamentally flawed because you can only build a sound business, or at least increase the probability of building a sound business, if you really believe in what you're doing. If you're really delivering a service, if you're really delivering a product that has value.
Ritesh, one of the stats that we saw was on loan approval rates, where, it tends to be much lower for women entrepreneurs applying for a loan vis-a-vis male entrepreneurs. Are you seeing that in your business, or, has Flexi Loans managed to make a difference there? And should we also broad-base the definition of business? I mean, beyond tech startups, should we also look at, other businesses that people are building? What's your own take on this?
Yeah, definitely. I would agree that firstly, we should broaden the definition of business is what we are talking about. We are comparing with ourselves, as Varsha was referring to, that we should look inside. But if we look inside, in India traditionally, if you go to villages, there are a lot of cottage industries which are being run by women entrepreneurs only. So women traditionally are good at businesses in India. But there are other stats which are shown by Ajay and other people that less than 10% of businesses are owned by women in India. So when they come to scaling up businesses, there is a ceiling which is there. There's a reason why they are not able to own businesses. They are not inheriting wealth in India from their parents. There could be other reason of not getting finance from banks. What we have observed in Flexi Loans, actually there is a huge problem where women don't get finance from banks because they don't have property papers in their names. There could be other issues. Our first customer was Neelam Kukreja from Agra. So she was just looking for finance of 80,000 rupees to sell on ShopClues. and no one was giving her finance, just 80,000. She didn't want to ask friends and relatives, okay, to do that kind of business, because there's a social stigma in getting finance. So we gave 80,000 rupees, and she doubled her sale. Her original sales were 1 lakh rupees. She doubled to 2 lakh rupees. Then she came back to another finance round of 2 lakh rupees. Now, last month we gave third round of finance of 8 lakh rupees. She has seen 10 times increase in sales just because finance was provided to her. So I want to bring this very important point that women in India don't get working capital finance, and we have to do something to provide finance to these entrepreneurs, and so that they can scale their businesses. Flexi loans have been doing a bit in this particular sense, and a lot can be done over there.
Right, right. And Deepti, in terms of the social aspect, the social returns that you see around businesses run by women entrepreneurs, what would your perspective be on that?
Our experience as an incubator supporting early startups in the social space has been that about 50% of our portfolio are founded and co-founded by women. And agreeing to what Varsha just mentioned, I think the early startup innovation ecosystem in India is thriving. And therefore, we see this as a good movement, progressively probably starting off in the early stage, and would go to the growth as well as it is moving across the phases. Specifically on the social metrics perspective, our mode of operations have been not to measure on impact as defined by us, but impact as defined by entrepreneurs, which is more based on the business plan and the roadmap that they would look at, both for the for-profits and the not-for-profits as well. From that perspective, significantly, I would say some of our insights over the last 18 months of our operations have been that women-founded enterprises have been very strong on governance.
Very strong on governance, okay.
Yes. And which
that's an interesting one. Yeah.
It's an important consideration. And our insight during the course of post-investment as well as pre-investment has been that the chances of mission drift, hypothetically, seem to be lower, given that there is clarity of thought in operations and the way forward. So that's an insight that I thought I should share with the forum.
Ajay, in terms of the way you've seen Empower grow over the last year, for entrepreneurs part of this accelerator, what really drew them to it? Was it just funding, or was it lack of mentorship, or a lack of a proper network? What were the key drivers for the entrepreneurs part of this program?
Sure. So I'll just add a couple more cents to what Deepti mentioned. So interestingly, last Saturday, and on the last session of the program, so I was just talking to the entrepreneurs, and I had done a little bit of a read up, and I was talking about, say, 10 points of being successful or whatever. So one of the things that I touched upon, and this came from a keynote from another similar kind of, I wouldn't say a program, but a conference, touching upon the subject of women entrepreneurs. And what the lady spoke about was that instead of using the woman card for negative points, the positive ones, like what Deepti mentioned about, like being more decisive, taking very firm kind of calls, not making hasty decisions, questioning oneself. So these are elements or characteristics which generally as traits would be common to women, and they should be used to your advantage as strengths when you're thinking about entrepreneurship or being an entrepreneur. Right. So that is something that is, I think, well documented or whatever. But coming to your point, and like we were discussing before the session, and also when I was talking, the general outlook of folks who have applied into this program, whether it was last year or this year, they have not just looked at it as a means to get access to funding. The primary reason why the entrepreneurs applied into the program was because it gave them an opportunity to be in a peer network or a peer group. So if you look at the general trend of entrepreneurs who have applied, and if you were to look at it even as a percentage, generally, so the number of women opting right out of college, engineering, postgrad, whatever, to be an entrepreneur is significantly lesser. And most of them, they come with 5, 8, 10 years of work experience, either in a particular domain, in industry, or whatever. And they have taken, either in many of the cases, they have taken a sabbatical,
Right.
after which they find it difficult to get back into job stream. But at the same time, they don't want to sit at home. They feel that they are qualified enough, they understand certain things, and they would want to make good use of their time. And they think about the entrepreneurial way. What that puts them in a situation is that they don't have similar set of like-minded folks who are also entrepreneurs. Because they might either work from home, or they might be just bringing up a family, or they might have a career, but they might not have taken the plunge of becoming an entrepreneur.
So I'm going to pick Ritesh's brains on the loans part and the finance part. You know, you mentioned how banks sort of fail to segregate who is actually committed to paying back and those who don't. So should we then start looking at financing for women entrepreneurs through informal channels, or not purely from a VC or a bank to websites or through other channels? Do you think that will work more?
So informal channels, like in any case, 90% of women entrepreneurs get financed through informal channels only. So it's not that
90%.
90%.
Okay. And informal channel would be what?
Informal channels would mean friends, family, and relatives. So
and what would the ratio be for men?
Ratio for men would be at least if you see organized. If I flip the point, only 5% of women entrepreneurs get finance from organized players, and in case of men, they get the ratio is around 15%.
Okay.
So
Okay.
that's it's not that the ratio is 100% for there, but still it's much better. So what I firmly believe is that there is a problem, and it has to be addressed in a structured manner. We can't leave it open and expect society to change over a period of time and give time
Right.
of 4-5 years and change it. We have to take constructive action to support it. I totally agree with Ajay that programs like Empower are helping in this cause. Similarly, on the finance side, if we know that banks are not financing women entrepreneurs structurally, and there is a problem because of XYZ reasons. Earlier NPAs were higher because those were not the actual borrowers. Actual borrowers were different male members who were borrowing in the name of females, which has screwed up their credit ratings. And because of that, now we need to do something. So what I propose is it can be done either at a fund level or at a government level. Certain specific program can be there to finance women entrepreneurs only. It is
like a dedicated government.
So it need not be it need not be a dedicated fund. So there is a concept called FLDG, First Loss Default Guarantee, wherein government is not actually giving loans to entrepreneurs directly, but they just create a fund, let's say 500 crore rupees fund. So in case default happens, they would take care of those defaults. So through this 500 crore funds, actual lending can be 10,000 crores, for example. And you can fund all these small businesses like Neelam Kukreja of Agra, and you can fund thousands, millions of such entrepreneurs and help them scale. And as a social impact, if you speak with Neelam Kukreja, she can support entire family. The kind of confidence she now gets when she has scaled up is totally tremendous. So it will have a huge social impact, huge economic impact, and we should do something about it in a structured manner.
Right. In terms of the next step forward, actually, it'll be good if all of you can weigh in. Atin, in terms of, how to improve these ratios, or how to paint a more convincing picture about returns when it comes to women entrepreneurs.
Which ratios are you talking
No.
about?
In terms of the approval rates or the investment that women currently get.
I think that from our perspective, we personally haven't faced this. So, we do look at it in a very, very positive light, and our ratios are excellent. So The only way I think that we can improve this is one through building a very, very sound infrastructure at the accelerator level. Because we've also been very, very fortunate that a lot of our founders that we look for have come through these programs because it has groomed them, it has nurtured them, it has worked with them very, very closely. And then we've had the advantage of that screening and that grooming. Two of our women entrepreneurs actually come from this program, so we thank them very much for that support. And the more we have this grassroots infrastructure working with the women entrepreneurs, it'll be automatic for the VC world to take notice of the right entrepreneurs coming across. So, and I've already seen that, not only with programs like this, but if you see international programs like Google Launchpad or Y Combinator, all of them coming, they don't look at men or women entrepreneurs differently. They look at the inherent value of a business. And some of our entrepreneurs are actually going for these programs to the Valley and suddenly coming into the limelight even for the larger venture capital world to take notice of them. So while we don't expect radical changes happening at the top immediately, but I think we can start at the bottom. Look at the accelerators, look at the incubators, build these infrastructures, supports programs like this. Then us who come in pre-Series A or Series A, looking at these entrepreneurs, and then overall, as the success keeps increasing, you will see the overall ecosystem supporting them as much.
Right, Varsha.
I would just add a couple sentences here. I think if we can start this in high school, this sort of culture of develop all the right and the left brain together and start some of these initiatives there. I think Google now runs something in that effect. We do it, Qualcomm does it within our corporation, also in some schools. So I think you started there. I think spread it to the non-IIT engineering schools as well, right? So I think currently it's capped there. So the IITs help to some extent because the entrepreneurship program, anybody from any college can apply. But you need to broaden that base to go to those same outside of the IIM, sort of go to the next tier. So enable the masses, right, in that segment. I think that will help a lot. So once you have the base coming in, which is strong, the funnel just get better. I think we have done a phenomenal job in banking, I think, in India. If you look at management leaders, senior management in banking is phenomenal in terms of representation. So I don't see why not you can't see the same representation in other industry. And I think Ritesh mentioned it's very strong in the cottage industry, right? So I think we should get there.
Sure.
Yeah, I would leave a thought with the audience to say that if the way forward could be switching from the written expectations, be it the financial or social, to focus more as sustainability as an effort, which would be more from for-profit to no loss-making.
Okay.
For the entrepreneurs, I think that's a great move.
Yeah, that's an important one.
Yeah, I think like it said, like it takes a village to raise a child. I guess even for entrepreneurship, whether it is general entrepreneurship, women entrepreneurship, I think there are several players who play a very important role. So like Varsha pointed out, I guess while it might start with academic institutions, I guess governments having programs and policies, structured programs like these, accelerators, what Round Glass is doing, so investors. So a lot of things are required to come together, and it takes some period of time rather than expecting change to happen overnight. So, and like we were discussing even before the panel and what Varsha was mentioning, so if you even went back 5 or 10 years back, purely in terms of number of investable companies, forget male and female, that itself has changed in terms of total number of entrepreneurs or startups in the country. So likewise, even if you look at women entrepreneurs as a subset of that or as a part of that, I guess that percentage also is kind of gradually increasing. So I guess it will take some period of time, but the ecosystem as a whole comprises of several elements, but all of them kind of working together.
And with that, I think we're running out of time. Thank you all so much, and I hope you managed to get insights on both aspects of the question. But thanks so much.